What was unusual about the sighting was there were actually 4 separate sightings of craft within the space of roughly an hour and a half. This first piece of video you can see here shows a UFO with an aircraft in its very immediate vicinity. The aircraft seems to be above the cloud because it gets obscured behind the cloud. The UFO is actually, I believe, beneath it because it hovers underneath. So there could be some distance between the 2 craft, but still in aviation terms, it's quite a near-miss event. So I think it's quite significant for those reasons. You can also see that there's quite a bit of aircraft traffic in the vicinity. It's a very busy part of London. You've got City Airport in the east and you've got traffic coming into Heathrow in the west. It's very busy. This second sighting occurred approximately 30 minutes after the first at around 3:22 p.m. Again, this object was quite indeterminate in shape, possibly spherical, very reflective, and was visible for approximately about a minute. Again, it appeared beside a cloud, hovered, and disappeared. Okay, we've seen 2 objects this afternoon. One was just a couple of minutes ago.
OVNI, an event which saw several sparkling presentations by some of the best-known figures in international UFO research. During our week-long visit, we caught up with several of the speakers during breaks in proceedings to seek their views on matters which are both topical and of particular relevance to their own field of study. Among them was Dr. Bob Wood and his son Ryan, who, over the past couple of years, had made several outstanding breakthroughs in analysing countless documents pertaining to an alleged covert UFO study group known as Majestic 12. Later, we hear from Dr. Richard Haynes, widely acknowledged to be the world's leading expert on UFO and pilot encounters. And we discover what persuaded best-selling author Whitby Stryber to turn his attention to a new book on the environment entitled The Coming Global Superstorm. But we begin with Bob and Ryan Wood, who later this year will be among the guest speakers at the 19th Leeds International UFO Conference.
The manual is an instruction manual for personnel to recover crash saucers and ship the parts to the right places. It does include special procedures for shipping from overseas. And so in that sense, it embraces the overseas aspect.
Right. It's important to remember, it is a field manual for troops in the field. And I think that this was, it didn't give a very broad overview of the program or maybe the other foreign intelligence that may have been available, but it was sort of a how-to manual. And when you look at the mundaneness of crate packing, it is almost an identical copy of an existing field manual, Army field manual from Carl. Barracks in Pennsylvania, where they have a reservoir of all these manuals, and you can find the references in the back of the manual perfectly line up to the era, and some of the documents changed shortly thereafter the manual was printed in April of '54. So it's interesting that it's such a tight fit to that time frame, and even you might say that the fact that it's just about picking up, recovering wreckage and so forth, and not about all the other aspects that you mentioned, lends towards topic rather than tracks.
Now, there are some other subtleties associated with the language too. For example, the use of the word screwdriver is 2 separate words is the way it's shown in the manual, and that is consistent with what was in the dictionary like in 1949. And then over the next decade, it changed to 1-word use as the application to a vodka drink.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned some of those things. I mean, the first thing I think of is the control page.
List of actions that we should be taking, one of which is, for example, contacting Dr. Ray, REA.
There's a lot of names in these documents, isn't there?
Right, and then the 93rd Technical Services Unit, I have the complete roster. These are the people that recovered the wreckage from Roswell, according to the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit. Detachment 3 ran around, picked up all the wreckage and so forth. There's 160 and some odd names of privates, sergeants, PFC, and so forth that were responsible. And I've found 30 of them on the internet, on Yahoo People Search, and I started calling some of them. And the question is finding the people that are in Detachment 3. Some of them have recalled, yeah, I was in New Mexico, I was there. But not talking about anything unusual. It's like, I picked up rocket debris all summer long. That's what happened to me. That was one case, and we have probably another 20 witnesses that can be researched. They're easy, before you start getting the names that are exceptionally difficult to find. Coordinates of landing zone 2. And my first question is, I wonder where that is. I said, Ryan, do you have a photo map to go look? And so we did. And they got several copies and mailed them to all my friends. And sure enough, about 800 feet or so from the train.
In Acapulco was a memorable event, made all the more so after the Pope gave his personal blessing to the organisers through his close friend and Catholic Church theologian.
There's other documents. Here's one in New Mexico along the same time as one of the UFO
objects. One turned out to be an ordinary piece of strange glass that contained
Friday the 29th of April. What was unusual about this sighting was there were actually 4 separate sightings of craft within the space of roughly an hour and a half. This first piece of video you can see here shows a UFO with an aircraft in its very immediate vicinity. The aircraft seems to be above the cloud because it gets obscured behind the cloud. The UFO is actually, I believe, beneath it because it hovers underneath. So there could be some distance between the two craft, but still in aviation terms, it's quite a near-miss event. So I think it's quite significant for those reasons. You can also see that there's quite a bit of aircraft traffic in the vicinity. It's a very busy part of London. You've got City Airport in the east, you've got traffic coming into Heathrow. In the west, it's very busy. This second sighting occurred approximately 30 minutes after the first at around 3:22 p.m. Again, this object was quite indeterminate in shape, possibly spherical, very reflective, and was visible for approximately about a minute. Again, it appeared beside the cloud, hovered, and disappeared. Okay, 2 objects this afternoon. One was just a couple of minutes ago. It wasn't very near, but definitely a solid structured craft. That's 2 sightings in about 35 minutes. So very exciting. I'm hoping that he's wrong. This third object was probably the most unusual out of the 4. It consisted of a dumbbell type of craft, 2 spheres very closely linked together. As you'll be able to see from the video, seems to be a kind of rotation going on with these 2 objects, and you'll also notice the top of the spheres seems to link in and out of visibility, very unusual. Again, suggests that this isn't a balloon or 2 balloons strung together, because again it's swaying on a particular axis, and if these were balloons being buffeted around by the wind, you wouldn't really expect this kind of uniform rotation going on. I believe that personally this is some kind of dumbbell craft that is actually coming in and out of our dimensional plane, if you like. God knows what the physics involved is, but you know, 1 minute you can see this object, and the next minute it's kind of hazy. This final object appeared approximately 4:20, roughly 35 minutes after the dumbbell craft. Again, it just appeared from out of the blue. What's interesting about this object is that it seems to hug the contour of the clouds. Now, it seems to me that it's definitely under intelligent control. If it were a balloon, you'd expect it to just be blown around randomly in the sky, but it's actually following the contour of this cloud as if to keep itself concealed from inquisitive eyes. This whole event drew to a close roughly about 4:25. So we're talking about an hour and a half in which 4 craft appeared at separate times. Again, this is sets a precedent for me. I think it's very significant that these craft are appearing in greater numbers and more often I think there's definite hint that this is an attempt at communication by the occupants or the pilots of these objects.